Hey guys, we've got some exciting news for all of you who just can't get enough of true crime. Our Patreon is growing, and we'd love for you to join us.
First up, we're bringing you even more true crime content. This month alone, we're covering the JonBenét Ramsey Netflix documentary and the Anatomy of a Lie docuseries, just for starters. These are deep dives that you won't want to miss. Want to help us decide what to cover next? That's where you come in.
Joining our Patreon also means having a private space to hang out with us. You can drop your suggestions for cases or shows you want us to cover and really influence what you hear on the podcast. Think of it as your VIP seat at the table, because we literally couldn't do this without you.
And if you've ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes, we're pulling back the curtain. We'll be hosting live recordings, Zoom hangouts, and sharing more of the day-to-day chaos that goes right into making the show.
Want a sneak peek of what we've got in store? We're going to play an exclusive preview of the first few minutes of our very first bonus episode. You'll get a taste of the true crime goodness waiting for you on Patreon. The best part? You can support the show on your terms. Our $5 tier is now available on Apple Podcasts for the same price, so you can choose the platform that works best for you.
At the end of the day, your support makes everything we do possible. Paid subscriptions are such a huge help to creators like us, and it means we can keep bringing you the stories you love, and a few you didn't even know you needed.
Click the link in the description to sign up today on Patreon, or head over to Apple Podcasts and join us there. It's totally up to you. We can't wait to see you on the inside.
Hey guys, and welcome to our new Patreon experience.
That's the one.
Melissa, we have been working hard to make this new experience possible.
We really have, and we've had help. Thank you so much, Harris, for helping give us some guidance. And we are just excited to get more content to you guys, and I'm excited to make Mandy watch more TV. So thank you for making that happen.
I bet you are. I was telling my husband that you are like, this might be the best thing that's ever happened to you. I was like, she's literally forcing me to sit and watch documentaries.
Multiple things. And we are kicking it off with one of the stories that all of us think about. I still don't know where I land on this, but it's a 3-part series on Netflix covering the JonBenét Ramsey case. It's called Cold Case: Who Killed JonBenét Ramsey? And today we're going to break down the first episode. So the first episode is called Keep Your Babies Close, and the description is, as the murder of 6-year-old JonBenét grips the nation, a bungled crime scene and relentless media scrutiny of her parents stall the hunt for her killer. And Mandy, we've both taken copious amounts of notes. And if you want to get started on the first half, sharing it, we will get right into it.
Yes. So I think a lot of people probably know the story of JonBenét Ramsey. This is a case that happened in 1996. I was not too old, but also was old enough to remember when this story was on like the television, that was on the news, and it was a huge story.
Right.
I remember even my own mom watching the TV, the reporting and making comments about like what she thought, had happened in this story. And so when I really think about true crime in my life, I feel like this is one of the earliest cases that I actually have memories of seeing the reports on TV. Pretty much like I said, everyone probably knows kind of how this story went. It's this beautiful 6-year-old pageant queen. It's the day after Christmas, December 26th, and her mom wakes up early in the morning and is making her way downstairs to get ready for the day, and still isn't even daylight, but she happens to notice that there's some paper at the foot of the stairs, and she picks it up and realizes that this is a ransom note, and it's talking about her little girl, and these people want money. And so nobody's really sure, kind of what's going on. The family has all these plans that they're, planning to leave to go fly to Michigan to have this second Christmas celebration with John Ramsey and his older kids. And so John Ramsey, of course, is JonBenét's father. Her mother's name is Patsy. And when he heard his wife scream as she's reading this letter, he goes to find out what happens and sees, everything that's going on. His wife is very upset. And so the two of them then are like, what should we do? Melissa, right off the bat, what is your impression of just that whole scene about coming down the stairs and seeing these random papers and you realize it's a note. What are your thoughts?
It's chaos. I can't even imagine waking up, especially right after Christmas. Like you're just like kind of still reeling from the day before, especially when you have small kids, like how great the day was, still kind of taking it in. I can't imagine coming downstairs and seeing this kind of note that just has to shock you into reality. And I don't think you'd know which way was up.
Really? Yeah. So the note itself, too, is worth talking about because that's like a huge piece. It becomes a huge piece of the case and of the story because the note itself was very unusual for a ransom note. For starters, it was very long and it kind of rambled on and on. It talked about how JonBenét had been kidnapped and these kidnappers wanted a very specific ransom of $118,000. And there were threats to kill her parents if they didn't cooperate. It was very graphic and brutal. And the letter specifically said that the kidnappers would behead their daughter if authorities were alerted or if any of the money was tampered with. And this very long, very bizarre letter was signed with the initials SBTC. So John Ramsey, after they review this note in their kitchen, tells his wife to call the police. And she frantically explains to the dispatcher that her daughter is missing and they have found this note. So John was interviewed for this documentary, and I feel like we've kind of have heard from John over the years. You know, he's talked about this case a lot. Of course, back when it was going on, he was in the news a lot. Patsy is no longer with us, so she is not in this documentary, but John is. So during John's interview for this documentary, he described the feeling he had that morning, you know, as they're realizing that their daughter is missing. He said, you know, he would describe it like when you lose your child in a shopping mall and for that split second and you don't know where they are and you're panicking and you're, you know, really scared about where they could be or what could happen to them. Every terrible thought goes through your mind in that moment. And then you usually find them and everything is fine. But he compared, you know, that feeling that you have to being the same way that they felt that morning, which I totally can understand that.
Right.
So JonBenét had siblings. As we said, her father had some older kids, of course, who did not live with them, but she also had a brother named Burke, who was 9 years old at the time, and he was still fast asleep when his parents discovered that his sister was missing. So Patsy calls all the friends that they had dinner with just the night before Christmas dinner, and all of these friends rushed back over to the Ramsey house just to be of support and to help the family with whatever they might need. Right off the bat, investigators knew this was a super rare case. Kidnapping for ransom is usually like a made-for-TV thing, I feel like.
I was going to say, it was in the movie Ransom, and that's about all I can remember.
Right. I can't even recall of a time where I've even heard of like a true kidnapping for ransom that didn't turn out. We've done some on the podcast.
We covered one.
Did we cover one?
Think of. And it was a real ransom. It was somebody's family who had a lot of money.
Right.
Years and years ago. And yeah, it was a real one. But besides that, no, we've covered fake ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like it's definitely not common. And like you said, you have to either have like a lot of money or a lot of like power or, you know, influence. And like there has to be a huge reason why somebody would want to do this to your family. So there's two detectives that showed up at first, and John shows them this note. So the detectives kind of just start taking stock of everything. They're looking around the house. They're talking to the people that are there. They did speak with Burke, and eventually they arranged for him to go to a friend's house while they, you know, continue to work the scene. And at this time, John says he just was taking a step back. He wanted to allow the police space to do their job. All he cared about was, you know, finding their daughter.
Right.
So something like you have to know about the Ramsey house, it's very like sprawling, but it doesn't really look that way from the outside. So from the front of the house, it kind of just looks like a regular, you know, middle class, regular house. But when you open it up and go inside, it's 6,500 square feet of living space, which is like,
wild.
Yeah, that's literally like 4 times the size of my house. I feel like
same.
crazy.
Yeah.
So there's 3 levels, and the top level is just converted completely into the primary bedroom where the Ramsey parents stay. And then JonBenét and her brother's bedrooms are on the second floor, which, of course, is hard to hear from the top floor because you're on another floor. And then the first floor is the main living level, and that's where the note was found near the kitchen. And then there's also a basement. This is in Colorado. So there's also a basement that the family used for storage. But they also had other rooms down there where they would do, different specific things. Like Burke had what he called the train room, and that's where he kept a lot of his toys that he played with. So officers searched the whole house, and they didn't really notice anything that they would consider a crime scene or anything that looked super suspicious. They noticed that the bed in JonBenét's room was not made, so it did look like she had slept in there at some point.
Right.
But they just sealed up her bedroom and told everybody to stay out of it. And they were hoping that, meanwhile, while they're working and moving around the house, they're waiting for the phone to ring because they're thinking these kidnappers are going to be calling any minute, getting ready to look for their ransom and,
right.
deliver instructions for the next steps. Like they should be calling any time now. And meanwhile, John is working on getting the money together that the kidnappers are demanding, this $118,000.